We always start with our primary colors. There's 3 primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. These 3 colors and the use of black and white, we can create all the colors in the spectrum. We call this the color wheel. It allows us to explain the color harmonies or relationships that these colors have. When we mix 2 primary colors, it gives us a secondary color. So when we do red and yellow, you get orange, right? And a lot of us know this from, our Crayola boxes and our art lessons from elementary school, hopefully. Blue and yellow make green, red and blue make purple, and that gives us our secondary span of color. So we're up to 6 colors using those 3. How we perceive color, if we're talking scientifically, it's not that an object is actually red, it's that when light hits the object, that object absorbs every other color except red. So in the same way, when you mix a secondary with a primary, you get a tertiary color. Okay? And so purple and red make violet. Purple and blue make indigo. You can also just call it bluish purple or purplish blue, depending on which side of the wheel it slides towards, right? So if it's closer to purple, it's purplish blue, and vice versa. Thanks to, Crayola and their love for selling crayons, they've come up with these fancy names for all these colors. Turquoise, chartreuse, Spanish orange, etc., red orange. Okay, and that's usually what we call them: red orange, yellow orange. And from here, obviously you can keep expanding, and like I said, as you add white and black to it, and we're going to talk about that, we create tints and shades of the color. Talking about value. Value is the darkness and lightness of a color. We covered this in the inking side of things. Darker inked objects will come forward more than those that aren't. Thicker lines, because they have more black in them, will seem to move forward than the ones that are black. And that's how we kind of simulate mass, is that the part of the object that is not darker but with more ink or thicker lines seems to be farther away from the light than that thin line that comes up almost disappears as it gets close to the light. Same with color. Darker colors will come forward, lighter colors will recede. All right, and this is key. You're not just adding one more number to the equation. When you bring color, you're adding millions of numbers to your equation now. And you gotta be able to handle them and control them so that you can create depth, all right? So what is the tint? The tint is the lightness of a color. So by adding white to a color, we create tints of that color. And so if we start with an ultramarine blue and we add white, progressively we create a tint scale of that color until it approximates or almost gets to white. By the same principle, if we add black to that color, we create a shade of that color. So as we continue to add black to it, we create darker values of that ultramarine. To clarify, it's the mixing of the color is to create a new color, right? So that if I want to shade blue when I'm rendering, I don't necessarily shade with black, right? But I shade with a darker version of that blue. Especially when you're working with lighter colors like yellow, you never want to shade yellow with black. You want to shade with a darker value of the yellow, or usually an orange or an ochre, because if you add black to a yellow, it'll turn green. I rarely and almost never shade with black when I'm rendering. Using color to shade, a lighter color to highlight. And white and black become colors that I use very sparingly and for special effect on the page. Color relationships are important and huge, and always, this is how I work all day, every day. These relationships is what I use to create depth, create objects, pop objects off the page, characters, all that stuff. I'm using these relationships and sometimes multiple relationships at the same time. All right. One of the most predominant ones is complementary colors. Complementary colors are colors that appear across each other from the color wheel. So red and green, blue and orange. And so a lot of companies will create their logos using complementary colors because they pop so much. The way I use these in compositions is to help focus by using a predominantly red composition here and spotlighting with its complement color. I'm guiding your eye straight to the one thing that I need you to look at the most. Right? In a crowd where the guy's getting trampled, if you want to see the guy that's getting trampled, I need to figure a way to do this. And so I'm using red to convey rage, and I'm bringing the complement, which happens to be the character's main color. It's no accident that I picked red. Here I'm using the purples of the sky to pop the warm colors, the yellows that I put into the tree and the leaves, and of course Yoda's robe. And I'm highlighting it with yellow too, and so that's really popping him forward. I'm also using a value play here, where I'm going darker behind the light objects. So the sky behind Yoda is darker, so that the yellows and bright colors that I'm highlighting him with pop him forward as well. For this piece, I want to highlight that yellow off of Wolverine, and that's on Colossus. And so I'm basically surrounding him with purples and violets and blues. And so your eye goes straight to that yellow.